Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Level Up Meeples. Today I'm planning to do something a little bit differently, obviously, since this is not a board game. I want to talk a little bit about pinball, and specifically how pinball, at least modern day pinball, in its rule set is very familiar and similar to modern day board games. So a lot of people, I don't think, realize how complex some of the programming has become in pinball machines. And personally, I feel like if you are a fan of board games and you have some hand-eye coordination, then you would really enjoy playing pinball. So this is just going to be a short video. I'm going to walk through some of the rules of this pinball machine in particular and do a comparison in terms of depth of rules, some of the strategy elements, etc., to board games. So the pinball machine that I'm going to be talking about today is Guardians of the Galaxy. This is a Stern 2017 machine. And first off, right out of the gate, a lot of you may not know what I'm even talking about when I say the rules of a pinball machine. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with pinball machines, maybe have never played one, all of them come with rules and objectives. The goal is never just to constantly flip the flippers, hit the ball around, and try to rack up points. Obviously, that's the end goal. But there are specific rules and objectives with every machine. And actually, a lot of machines have a way to beat them. There's an end game and a progression throughout. So if you're not familiar with a particular machine or pinball in general, every single machine has a card in the bottom left corner which outlines a few of the rules to at least get you started. Now, this machine in particular, if you were to look up the full rule set, which I'll post in the comments, there's a lot of rules. There's basically over 10 pages of rules for this machine, but every machine, like I said, will at least have a few to get you started if you come across one in a bar and aren't sure what the objectives are. You can always reference this rule sheet. So for today, I'm going to talk about just a couple of them. I'm going to specifically talk about the missions here, but then also this group multi-ball. And the reason why I'm going to talk about this is usually on this card, you'll find a couple things that are pretty straightforward and pretty easy to do. And one of them is typically a multi-ball. And the reason for that is because, casual players, they really enjoy getting a multi-ball. There's obviously a certain rush with having multiple balls flying everywhere on the machine. So typically there's a straightforward objective to get a multi-ball in every machine. So if you just look for it on this card, you should be able to find it. Okay, so for this particular multi-ball, the Groot multi-ball, it basically says to shoot Groot to open his mouth and lock 3 balls, which will then start Groot multi-ball. So what is that referring to? In the middle of the play field here, you'll see that there is a big Groot figure. And right now, his mouth is actually already open. But if we were to start a new game here, you'll see that his mouth will close. There we go. And so to get this multi-ball, the goal is to shoot his mouth. And when you hit his mouth with the ball, it will open. And then you can actually lock a ball inside. So if you hit it again, your ball will go down inside of his mouth and his mouth will close. And you can repeat that process 3 times. So basically, hitting Groot 6 times will start the Groot multi-ball, and then he'll open his mouth, shoot out all of those balls, and you'll have a 3-ball multi-ball going until 2 of them drain, and you're back to a single ball. So that's one multi-ball. There are a few in this game, but like I said, that one is really geared towards casual players. And one of the reasons for that is because Groot is right in the center of the play field. So for casual players, typically it's pretty straightforward to aim the ball towards the center of the play field and hit an object out there. It becomes a lot more difficult when you get far into these angles. So this Yondu shot over here in the corner is pretty difficult to hit, as well as there's a shot right here, the Star-Lord shot, which is also difficult to hit for more experienced players, and that's why Groot is in the middle there. Okay, the main thing I want to talk about though for this video is the different missions, and this in this game is really the bulk of the rules. So what that's referring to is when I start a game, you'll see that on the screen it shows there are 8 different characters or 8 different missions that you can cycle through using the flippers. So as I'm hitting the flippers, it cycles through the different missions. And if we look back at the playfield, what that's actually doing is it's changing the lights associated with different shots on the field. So the goal is to complete these missions, and to do that, you can see in the top left there's a number of shots to hit, and those are indicated by the vertical lines. So in this one there are 7 shots. This one has a few more. This one has a lot. This one only has 5, and additionally there's a timer. So what that means is you have 68 seconds in this mission to complete 5 shots. This one has 166 seconds to complete, I think there's 12 or 13 shots in this one, for example. And the shots that it's referring to are the colored lights. However, it's not as straightforward as it may seem, because a lot of these missions have specific nuances to them that are also built into the rule set. So for example, this is Antiquities Shop, which is 7 shots in 61 seconds. Well, to start off, there's only 2 lit shots. There's this target right here, and then there's this ramp right here. However, with this particular mission, when you complete one, the 2 shots change. So while right now it's these 2, once I shoot this ramp potentially or hit this target, the light will turn off and it will appear somewhere else. So this one is constantly moving the shots on you, for example. Another example is Sanctuary. So Sanctuary, at first glean looks pretty easy. It's only 5 shots in 68 seconds. But the reason why this one's more difficult is because the shots actually are these stab targets that are located throughout the playfield. And that's a challenge and difficult for 2 reasons. Actually, this is one of the harder missions because it's difficult for 3 reasons. So the first is 2 of these shots are on the far edge of the playfield. So as we talked about earlier, it's pretty hard to hit something this far left and this far right. So these 2 shots are really difficult. The second reason is because these are all pretty much dead-end shots. So, if I were to hit the ball, for example, up this ramp, that would be considered a safe shot because the ball would travel up the ramp, come around, come down into this in lane, and get deposited right back at my flipper. So a pretty safe shot there. Same with, for example, this orbit. So if I were to hit the ball through this orbit, it actually travels around the back of the playfield, comes back out on this side, hits this flipper, and again, it's a safe shot. The difference is these stab targets, they're not so safe. If I were to hit this stab target, the ball is going to get a little bit chaotic as it's bouncing around here, and where it's going to end up is unknown, and you're going to risk draining the ball, especially since these shots are on the lower half of the playfield. They're going to move, the ball's going to move pretty quickly, and it's going to be difficult to get back into control. And the third reason why this mission in particular is tricky is because this one does not save its progress. So with all these other ones, for this one, for example, if I were to complete 3 of the 7 shots in 61 seconds, then the next time I start this mission, it continues where I left off. So I'll be already done with 3 of the shots. However, back to Sanctuary with the only 5 shots, you have to complete all 5 shots in 68 seconds, or else your progress completely resets. And so in this game in particular, that's how you basically progress through the rules and beat the game. There's a tracker right here in the middle of all of the 8 shots, all of the 8 missions. And as you complete them, the lights become solid. And completing them is how you progress and eventually beat the game if you're experienced enough. So finishing all 8 would launch Save Xander, which is the end game mission. Finishing 4 of them starts Cherry Bomb Multi-Ball, which is sort of a midway bonus mode, and that's a 6-ball multi-ball, which is really fun. And then there's also 2 other multi-balls, Groot and Orb. We've already talked about Groot multi-ball, but that brings us a little bit into some of the strategy that's built into the rule set here. There's actually a fair bit of strategy when it comes to playing the game. There's strategy in which mode you select when. So, obviously that depends on which ball you're on and also your ability to hit certain shots. But the multi-balls bring another element of strategy in. And the reason why is because you can actually bring multi-ball into one of these modes. So what I mean by that is, let's go to Nowhere here, which you can see has a lot of shots in only 85 seconds. But at the same time, there's 4 different lit ways to collect those shots. So a lot of times, if you're close to getting multi-ball, so like we said, you have to lock 3 balls in Groot to get a 3-ball multi-ball. So early on in the game, it may be a good strategy to do other modes and try to lock 2 balls into Groot. So basically get him ready, and then start a mode that has a lot of difficult shots or a lot of spread out shots. And then that's when you would shoot the 3rd ball into Groot, get the 3-ball multi-ball, and now, with balls going everywhere, you have a better chance of hitting some of these shots than you would otherwise. Actually, if we go back to Sanctuary here, this is a great mode to bring a multi-ball into because you have all of these stab targets, and with 3 balls or more balls flying around everywhere, bumping into each other, it's you have a much better chance of hitting some of these targets than you would if you only have 1 ball, especially these edge ones. So there's another element of strategy that is built into the rule set, and that has to do with this 3rd button here. So most Stern pinball machines does have a 3rd button, and the functionality of this button is different for each machine. But in this one, I particularly like how it's used. And basically, during gameplay, if you're able to hit the 5 targets that we talked about for that one mode, but it doesn't have to be linked to the mode. It can be any time. They're labeled Hadron Enforcer. So again, there's 1 here, there's 2 here, there's 1 here, and there's 1 here. So as you're playing, each time you hit one, it lights up and gets tracked. And if you are able to hit all 5, then this button lights up like it's doing now. And when it's lit, you have 3 uses of it. So you can press it 3 times during play. And what it does is it will automatically collect one of the shots each time you hit it. So basically, there's a lot of strategy in terms of when you might use this button. A couple obvious ones might be if you're close to finishing a mode and the timer's running down, then you might want to press the button just to finish the mode before the timer runs out. If your ball is about to drain, so if it does start going down these out lanes and is about to drain, yet, again, you're close to finishing a mode, then that's a good time to collect some additional shots on that mode potentially. And there's a few other strategies that are used with the button, but I think it's a really fun element to this game in particular. All right, so hopefully that gave you a pretty good, at least primer to this pinball machine in particular, but also more modern day pinballs and how complex some of their rules can be. If I were to compare this to a board game, then obviously in this one in particular, it's basically set collection. You're trying to collect a bunch of shots to finish these modes, but since it's timed, it's also real-time set collection, I would say, coupled with dexterity. Obviously, there's a lot of dexterity involved in the aiming and the hand-eye coordination required to hit the buttons, or to hit the ball rather. My hope is that you learned a couple things in this video, and I plan to post a few links in the comments. One will be to the full rule set for this game, just so that you can get a little bit more clarity and understand how deep the rules actually go, as well as some videos that show you some professional pinball players playing this machine, so you can see how good, first off, how good they are, and also how they embed some of the strategy they talk through while they're playing. And then my real hope is that the next time you see a pinball machine, especially if you've never played one or rarely play one, either at a bar or some other local place, you at least go check it out and go take a look at the rules card in the bottom left corner. Try to see how some of these rules align with elements on the playfield, and maybe play a couple games and see what you think. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.